She slammed the door to my office, and I swear I heard plaster rattle to the floor. "My name's Kate," she said, "and I'm in trouble." They're always in trouble. That's why they come to me. I'm a writer crash tester. After 17 years and 32 novels of my own, I can shake down a plot, twist a sentence like a pretzel, and slam a paragraph against a wall until it begs mercy. I take no prisoners. I brook no excuses. And now I'm on the case of the exploding cat. Kate needed answers, and she needed them fast. She handed me a sheaf of papers and said, "I keep finding myself in the same place. Too much description, not enough action. You have to help me." So I started reading. Lillian had run away. Joan just knew. A mother does. Forget what the high school principal or the police chief said about kids being kids. Joan jabbed the key at the keyhole in front of the door several times before it hit home. Her fingers tightened around the doorknob and the stubborn thing just clicked. Wouldn't open. A scream tore at her chest, trying to beat its way out of her. Joan stifled her sobs, hoping the neighbors didn't see. Chief Gillespie told her to drive around town looking for Lillian. Joan huffed a laugh as she remembered his words. It didn't matter if Joan went to the Cowboy Drive-In or to the new gazebo where kids hung out and smoked cigarettes. Lillian wouldn't be there. She was gone, and she wasn't coming back. The front door finally opened, and Joan stumbled into her lemon-scented house. Her purse strap slipped off her shoulder and slid down her arm. She did nothing to stop its progression toward the living room floor. It hit with a dull flop. It opened, spilling junk around her feet. Joan gave the mess a cursory glance and dragged herself to the stairwell. Her left hand closed on the banister. She hefted one foot onto the first step and looked up at the endless distance before her. Someone knocked on the door. Joan didn't turn around. They knocked harder, rattling the door in its frame. Anger quickened Joan's pulse, erasing the lethargy gripping her. She wiped the hot tears off her cheeks and spun on her heel. Her hair streamed behind her as she hurried to the door and swung it open. The 20-something woman clutched a stiff piece of paper and beamed like she had found Shambhala. Joan had seen her around town, but couldn't remember her name. She started to tell the girl it was a bad time, but she didn't have time to get a word out. "Hi, ma'am." The smile got bigger. "I'm here to tell you about we don't want any." Joan's low murmur never registered. The enthusiastic pitch continued as though Joan hadn't spoken. The salesgirl's lips finally stopped moving, and she beamed at Joan. Joan realized the salesgirl must have asked a question. She'd have to ask her to repeat herself. In a town as small as Walker, she just couldn't slam the door in the girl's face. But she wished she could. She wanted to go into her daughter's room, figure out where to find her baby girl. Joan forced herself to speak instead. "I'm sorry, what is it? What did you say?" Joan barely kept the edge out of her voice. A smile was out of the question. Underneath her clothes, Joan's skin rippled, responding to her stress. The shiver started at Joan's toes, begging her to let herself change form, be something else for a few hours. She fought for control, praying she wouldn't turn into a house cat in front of this girl. At which point, in the reader's mind, the cat basically explodes the scene. We start out pretty well here. We find out that the mother's daughter has run away. We find out that she is frantic. The writer shows us this pretty clearly with her jabbing the key at the keyhole and not being able to hit it. But then things start going wrong. First off, Joan starts ignoring sensible advice. Chief Gillespie told her to drive around town looking for her kid. So, why doesn't she? Next, we get odd sensory details and distracting action. First, we get the lemon-scented house, which is a perky smell in a dire situation. And then we have the distracting action of a character who's watching her purse hit the floor and spill junk at her feet. And this is not critical to what's going on in the scene, which is that her kid is missing and she's got to find her. However, she hefted one foot onto the first step and looked up at the endless distance before her is good. It shows us the weight that the character is carrying, her fear, her dread, her panic. And it does it without telling us she was scared. Then we have actions that don't fit the situation. We have Joan being angry when someone knocks at the door, and then running to the door, and then spending a significant amount of time talking to a salesman. Well, a salesgirl. And critical needs are ignored while she does this. She wanted to go into her daughter's room, figure out where to find her baby girl. Yes, of course she does. But instead, she's talking to this twit. But then, we have underneath her clothes, Joan's skin rippled, responding to her stress. The shiver started at Joan's toes, begging her to let herself change form, be something else for a few hours. She fought for control, praying she wouldn't turn into a house cat in front of this girl, which goes poof, because we have no warning that this woman is a shapeshifter. So, how do we fix this? Fix number 1. Maintain tone. In a scary, tense, frantic scene, things like perky lemon-scented houses are jarring. Lemon is a happy smell. In the example that I wrote to try and work this out, I have the front door finally opened, and Joan stumbled into her hollow house, which whispered her breathing back at her in short, sharp echoes. Gone, gone, gone. And what you're looking at there, you're still getting the sensory details. We want to have smells and feels and sounds, but they need to fit the situation. A hollow house, echoes of her whispered breathing, and some kind of tonal things there with gone, gone, gone. Fix number 2. Focus on what is critical. A mother whose child is missing is not going to chat with door-to-door salesmen. This is life or death, and she will be rude, and she will have every right to be rude. But she's going to run to the door because she's going to hope that somebody has found her kid. So her emotions here were in this scene were flipped around. She should have been kind of hopeful, kind of excited as she ran to the door, and then angry as she saw that it wasn't the police or somebody bringing her daughter back. It was the ditz with a pitch. So what I did here, the example I've written, someone knocked on the door. Joan ran to answer it, hoping it was the police, that they'd found Lillian. But when she saw the saleswoman standing there, she slammed the door and headed for Lillian's room, hoping to find anything that would tell her what happened. This cuts out a lot of extraneous action, and it cuts out a completely unnecessary character in the saleswoman. Okay, next fix. Everything has a reason why. If the mother is not following what seems like sensible advice, then show us why she isn't. In the example where I've rewritten this, I have Chief Gillespie told Joan to drive around town looking for Lillian, but it didn't matter if Joan went to the Cowboy Drive-In or to the gazebo where the kids hung out and smoked cigarettes. Joan could feel Lillian's absence like a hole in her gut. Her daughter was gone, and she wasn't coming back. This does not say that she has some other way of knowing that her daughter is gone, but it does tell us that she is so certain that this is going to be useless activity that she just doesn't do it. And finally, fix number 4. This is the biggest fix, the exploding cat. You have to foreshadow any big twist that you're going to end the scene with at the very beginning of the scene. From the first sentence, create hints that connect the mother's shape-shifting to the fact that she knows her kid is missing. The example I've done here is Lillian had run away. Joan could smell it in the fear that marked the front door. She could feel it as a weight on her skin. So what I've done here, this is subtle. It's not a big thing, but if you have a woman who can smell fear marking a front door, that is a hint right away that something is a little off about her. And when you drop the cat on us at the very end of the scene, it won't explode. It won't throw us out of the scene and make us say, "What in the world?" Instead, you have hinted, and as you go through the scene, use other small sensory details to continue to hint that something is going to happen at the end of the scene. You don't have to be obvious about it, and it's much better if you don't. But you do have to have the clues in there so that the reader at the end, when you say she wants to shift into a cat, goes, "Aha, I knew something was going on." In the case of the exploding cat, you've seen a plotting crash, inserting an unnecessary character in the form of the door-to-door salesgirl. A characterization crash, having the character focus on the irrelevant salesgirl instead of the important missing daughter. A style crash, breaking the tone of the scene with perky words in a tight, suspenseful situation. And a structural crash, not introducing the foreshadowing for the shape-shifting at the beginning of the scene. Writer crash tests. I do them because all writers make mistakes. Working writers learn how to fix them. Watch for more writer crash tests from me, Holly Lisle, novelist, writing teacher, writer crash tester. writercrashtest.com